So, today what we're going to do is we're going to make a black and white flat sketch from a reference image. It will be dress JPEG, can be found on Brightspace. The first thing we want to do is create a new file for our flat. So we're going to open up Illustrator like I have here and click on New File. Like before, I like to use a letter size, so I'll click on Print and use a letter size. Again, this is just a good sort of reference so I don't make my image too small or too big. Letter, we both all know sort of what that size is, and if I do ever want to print out my work, I have a good size for printing. So I'm going to click on letter. All of this will be okay for right now, and I will create my document. All right. Now I need a couple things. First, since I am doing a flat, and I'm going to do a proper fashion flat, which is a little bit different than how we did our colored polo. We're going to be doing it black and white, as most fashion flats are, and we're going to be using a technical croquis. Now you can find technical croquis in this week's module. It's right here. So if you click on the flat croquis link, it will bring you to this page. I'm going to go ahead and download this image, and I can click and drag this directly into my document here, or I can open it up by going to File, Open, looking in my downloads, opening it, and it will open right up. Now it's opened up on another page, so what I'm going to have to do is click on it, copy it, either by hitting Control-C or going to Edit, Copy, going back to my original work, and pasting it by hitting Control-V or Edit, Paste. We have my croquis in here. Now I'm going to go ahead and scale it to a size that I like. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than this, but not too big. And I'm going to hold the Shift key as I do it. Remember that in Illustrator, when resizing, we hold the Shift key down to constrain proportions. This is different than Photoshop, where it's the opposite. All right, now that I have my croquis ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and click on my layers and create a new layer to work on. So just like in the polo flat where we separated our original image from our work, we're going to do that with our croquis. So I can remove the croquis easily later on. I'm going to go ahead and lock layer 1 just to prevent me from interacting with that layer. Now the last thing I might want is my reference image. And I have that open. You can find it in the assignment. The link will be there and it will open up just as such. Now you can keep it in a separate window, that's perfectly fine. Or if you'd like it in Illustrator, you can right click, copy image, and go ahead and paste it in. If you do so, it is going to be quite large. So I'm going to just scale it down to a more reasonable size to work with. And I'm not going to put it on my work. Again, this is just going to be a reference image. So I'm just going to be referring to it back and forth. And if you want to just keep it in your browser window, that's perfectly fine. Again, we're just going to be looking at it, not working on top of it. Remember, our zoom functions are control positive and control negative. Right. So I'm going to start with the front of the dress. As we can see, has a lot of little shirring details, has shirring in the bodice here, in the upper part of the bodice, and it has a sort of shaped waistline with a lot of fullness and shirring. So we're going to be doing a lot of those sort of particular details, that sort of flowing details. That will be quite different from our flat, polo flat, which didn't have any of those little details. All right, so let's get going. I'm going to take a look, and I'm going to go ahead and start with my general outline. And we see it has a sort of little strap here, a nice sort of wide V-neck, so on and so forth. So I did paste this in, so I'm going to go ahead and actually make an additional layer that I can work on while also being able to get rid of my image right here. So I've got a nice clean layer now, layer 3, because my layer 1 has been taken up by my croquis, and layer 2 has been taken up by my reference image. All right. You know what? Just for ease of work, I'm going to go ahead and move my reference image on this side, just because I'm going to work on the front first, so I want to be able to see it pretty easily. I don't want to be going in and out. So I'll just move it over there for ease. Okay. So, as we learned before, what we want to do is we want to prepare our colors for our pen tool. Now, what we want is we want our fill color, which is the solid square, to be a nil fill. And we're going to continue this. Keeping it invisible will allow us to see the croquis underneath as we work. But we do want a nice black line. So I'm going to double click on my black and get a nice black outline. And we're ready to begin. All right. So I see this is coming down. It's coming down. If here's the bust line, just below the bust line. If here's the bust line right here. This is our bust line reference. So I'm going to start just below there. Now, in the previous flat we did, we had a guideline come down here. We drew one out from our rulers. This this croquis has a fairly good middle line. Kind of isn't here, but I'm going to use this middle line as my line of symmetry instead of getting out my rulers and getting out a guideline. Now, you can get out a guideline if you'd like. There's certainly nothing wrong with it. All right, so as we see here, I'm going to come up here, and there's a little bit of gathering. See, we have these tucks, and it's not completely flat up here. There's a little bit of folds and tucks, so I'm going to be sure to get those into my drawing as well. Okay, so just looking here, I'm going to go ahead, and I'm going to start just below that bust line. And we have sort of wider neckline, so I'm going to come up here. I'm going to zoom in here, and instead of going straight across, I do have some folds and little wrinkles in my shoulder. So I'm going to put in just some of those little wrinkles and folds, and that will read a lot better when I am doing my tucks and fold lines. So I have a little bit of texture there. We have a fairly normal armhole. So I'm going to follow our guideline. And if I zoom out, this is fairly fitted around here and very straight and fitted here up until about the waist. This goes a little bit down below the waist. But maybe I'll make the bust slightly rounder. And then we go straight down to the waist, as it's quite fitted. Now, as we can see in the image, we have this very full round skirt, and there's a definite break in silhouette. When I want to get that, that's created by all this shirring exploding out from this very fitted sort of corset waist. So I want to get that silhouette. I don't want to just come straight down. I want to get that kind of rounded poof that we're getting with all that fullness. So I'm going to round out that shape right there. Now I want to come straight down to the hem. And it's quite full, so I'm going to angle it out quite a bit. That will give me enough area to give a nice curve and also to put in all my flares. Okay, now I'm going to stop right here for now. I'm going to stop this line because I want to keep my hem a little bit separate. And you'll see why when we get to top stitch. Now, the first thing I might want to do, when we have full hems like this, we want them to be kind of rounded, right? We don't want them to go straight across. It's going to make it look fuller, and it's going to be more accurate to how it looks in the garment. See how we get that kind of nice curve in the hem when it's nice and round and full? I want to replicate that here. I don't want it to be flat. So, what you can do to help you is you can actually put in a little bit of a guideline. So what I'm going to do, and I'll delete this later, but I'll just put in a little bit of a curved line that is going to help me kind of go along and create my curved hem. Okay, so if we look down here, we can see that this hem is very full. There's all these big flares coming all the way down here. Now, to try to capture this exactly would be very, very difficult. So we're going to use sort of a simplified version or rendering of all of these folds. And what we really want to concentrate on is really making these sort of breaks and sort of staircase-like shapes in the hem. And that will act as our folds. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to zoom into our hem, and I'm going to stop about right here. And I'm going to keep this as a separate line. I'm not going to connect it with this one. And you'll see why in a minute. I might move it later on so I don't have any gaps, but for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and start the line right here. Now what I want to do is I want to sort of curve these a little bit, but as I go, and I'm going to zoom in real close to this so you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to kind of drop down with a straight line. See, we need to sort of also follow this, so these drops will help us do that. And I'm going to go ahead and round out another one, go back, convert my anchor point because I want a nice drop. Boop. And we're going to go, we're going to make them all a little bit, some a little bit bigger, some a little bit smaller. Let me move over a little bit. Now, if we want to get fancy, we can do some of these internal ones too. I can go in with it. And these are common for very full flares. So we'll do a little one right like that, and then I'll continue sort of my staircase structure, giving each one of these a little bit of a round. So the straight down ones are going to be very straight, and the ones that go a little bit more horizontal are going to have that little bit of a curve to it. Maybe I'll put another one of these guys in here. Again, there's no rule. You can mix them up how you like. You can do all just staircase. You can do a few of these guys as you go, so on and so forth. There's no rule. We're just doing it to indicate our flares. Maybe this one's a little bit wider. All right, I'm going to zoom over. Remember, I got to get to about right here. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe do another one of these guys that go internally or go up. I shouldn't say internally, but just go up. So it's a complex shape, but as you can see, if we break it down with these simple images, it's not so hard. I'm going to do a few wider ones just so we're not here all day. And again, I'm getting down, so I don't want to go up. Remember, this should be my deepest one in the middle here. So there we go. Oh, I turned my curve off, but I can go fix that later on. All right, so maybe another couple wider ones till we get to that middle one there. I'll sort of extend that a little bit wider. And right when we're kind of at the middle here, I like to do that middle one as half a pleat or half a drape. So we'll stop about right there, and I'll end my line. Okay. Now what I can do is I can get rid of my guideline. I went a little bit deeper at the end there, but that's okay. We do want the middle to be the deepest. And I'm just going to go ahead and delete that line. I just selected it and hit the delete key to do so. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this line now, and I'm just going to scoot it up a little bit. You can move it with the black arrow or nudge it with your arrow keys, just so we don't have that gap up here anymore. All right. Now, that was a fairly complicated line, and but what's good about keeping it separate is now, right, I'm going to assume that this dress, if we look very closely, has a sort of rolled hem, which means it has a top stitch, right? It's really big. I bet it took forever to hem, and it would be even longer if we tried to do a blind hem stitch. So we got to put that top stitch in. There's just one roll of top stitch, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this hem I already did, copy it, paste it, and apply my top stitch here. So I'm going to go to stroke, I'm going to go to dashed line, and I'm going to make it slightly thinner. Now remember from my last video that my unit preferences are a little weird. Your stroke will probably be at 1. So to make it thinner, you can just reduce it by half and make it 0.5. And your dash length would probably be good at about 2. And see, I'm just going to place that right on top. And instead of having to do that whole complicated line again, we have a very excellent top stitch for our hem finish. All right. Now let's zoom out. Let's do some of the more major seams before we get into all of our little flares and drapes here. Now we have this seam right here, and we have the main seams of the bodice. So let's go ahead. Some technical croquis will have a little bit of a bust curve right here, but we're just going to go ahead and use our reference image and try to match it pretty close. Let's move it over so it comes to about a point right there and then curves up back here. So we'll do that same thing. Here I can connect it if I so feel I need to. It is curved, so I'm going to make that kind of curved line and have it sort of curve over here. Now be careful, see how it is has that positive mark? That's going to make an anchor point on our existing line, but not continue our line. And if you see, and I'll zoom in a lot closer if you can see a little bit better. So see, the line will go away, our preview line will go away if I'm going directly on that line. But if I go a little bit off it, we get our preview line. And that's really what I want, because the positive line, or the positive mark, if I do this, it's just going to go ahead and make an anchor point on my existing line, and it's not going to continue my line. I want to go ahead and do just like this. Actually, let's do it a little bit more, a little bit lower, just like so. Now I can stop, and if I want to fix the gap, I can move it with my white arrow. And actually looking at this, I'm going to move this up a little bit right here. And that looks pretty good. Actually, remember there was one flare that fell a little flat, and I said, let's fix it later. And then, oh, I didn't. And I really should have done it before I did this guy, because we'll curve that like that, and then I'm just gonna pull it a little bit, and then we'll do the same thing right here just to round it off. Click that curve, we'll get some anchor, and then we can curve it. Oop, click to the other one. A little line right there, just so we get it there. There we go. It was probably fine flat, but you know, just to show you how to make corrections. Okay. So let's finish off with our main seams. I'm going to do that waist seam first because our princess seams, our corset seams, are going to run from there to our bust. So it's good to know where they're going from. So let's take a look at this shaped waist. All right, it's going from our hip right here, and it's going not too far down. I don't think all the way to the high hip. Maybe to the high hip, maybe just above the high hip looks like. Not too much. But it kind of curves, kind of comes in and then swoops down like that. So let's go ahead and make that shape. So I'm going to come in a little bit, kind of keep it flat, but maybe just a little bit curved up. And then we'll come down. It was just above that high hip. And then I'm going to make it sort of like a little bit curved like this. Now you'll see that I have my top stitch, but that's okay. I'm just going to click on it and then use my eyedropper tool to switch it. And let's compare. Looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit flatter on this curve here, not so narrow. So with my white arrow, I can go ahead, click back on this line, grab that handlebar, and maybe flatten out that curve just a little bit. Maybe a little bit right here too, flatten it out. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Now what we have are our corset seams, 1 and 2. I might, since that one is in the middle, I might wait till after I flip it, since it will sort of be a little bit clumsily overlapped if I do it beforehand. So I'm going to go ahead. Now, these aren't exactly on our princess seam. You see it comes from about the middle bust, really pretty close to our center front here. And that is done probably purposefully because those strong diagonal lines will actually thin the waist. So it will start about here, but it's going to go probably about right here. If we take a look back, it looks like maybe this line is a little bit lower if we look at that shape. So let me just grab this point, kind of soften that out a little bit there. That looks a little bit closer, yeah? Yeah, that does. Okay, since these are corset seams, what I'm going to go ahead and do and copy and paste this line because every corset seam also has top stitch. And I'm going to kind of set it right close there. And then while it's still selected, use my eyedropper tool on my top stitch to create the top stitch for right here. So the boning sits right in between this seam and this top stitch here. It creates like a little tube for the boning. All right, so we have our basic silhouette right now. Let's go ahead and make our little gathers. Let's start up here. So if we see what's going on with the bust part, we have some drapes up here, and we have lots of little tiny shirring right here. And you might say, wow, that's a lot to render. And you'd be right. But we're going to use a few tips and tricks in our tool bag. So what I'm going to do, and sometimes what I like to do is I like to do my little loopies on a completely separate layer. This will actually allow me to sort of select and move around my little loopies, drapes and shirring a little bit easier. So I'm going to make a new layer just for this stuff. And I'm going to go up and I'm going to make a little loop. Now, I am not going to be too worried that it's in top stitch right now because we're going to go ahead and really change a lot of these properties in a minute. So maybe do just one that's just like this. And you do really want to be nice and zoomed in for this. And now I'm going to do maybe another kind of bigger little loop that kind of comes around a little bit. You know, actually, I'm going to, just so you see the shapes that I'm making a little bit easier, I'll go ahead and make these solid. You see, these are the sort of shapes I'm making. There's kind of little loops, little upside down J's twisted and in between. And let's make one more. Just a real little tiny one, let's say. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to select all these guys with my black arrow. And of course, you can do them individually by holding the Shift key down, or you can do what I did, which is just click and drag that little bounding box, and everything in it will be highlighted. And it's nice and easy. I'm not highlighting anything else or selecting anything else because I am working on that new layer. So I'm going to go to Properties, and I'm going to click on that stroke. And what I'm going to do down here is below our little dashed line at the very bottom, I am going to click one of our profile options. Now this will change the line quality. All these have a very even line quality. When we talk about line quality, that is where the line can be a little bit thinner or a little bit thicker. We call this even line quality because the line never gets thinner or thicker. It just always stays the same. But as you can see here, these lines do get thinner and thicker. Now for these guys, I like to use the triangle. And it will see, as you can see, sort of taper it off in the curve. Now I also like to make these a little bit thinner. So I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit thinner. And I'm going to just go ahead and zoom out a little bit and turn off my visibility of my croquis so you can kind of see how that looks. Right? Kind of looks like a little bit like shirring. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fill in the rest of my shirring on here with those little options. So I'm just going to go ahead and select them, copy them, Control C, and paste them, Control V. At this point, I'm going to group them by going to Object Group. And this will just make them moving around and sort of arranging them be a little bit easier. So what's nice about this is I can make some a little bit smaller. So they're not going to be so super uniform, and I can tilt them around to go at different angles. And let's paste another one. I'll place this in here. I'm just going to kind of rotate it around so we get, if you get one that's kind of dropping down there, that guy's a little dropping. Let's make these even a little bit thinner here, maybe a little smaller. You know, who knows? Maybe I want to pick this guy up so I can select. Oh, I guess this one didn't group. I can even change the sort of individual ones. I can even flip them if I feel like it's getting a little bit too repetitive. Let's make this one tiny. They do kind of get a little bit smaller as you get up here. And these ones didn't group. You can even sort of just arrange them a little bit like this. Maybe I have two right here. Maybe one other little one right in here. Right there. And I'll grab a few more of these just to end up. And as you can see, if you want to go a little bit faster, we can sort of pick up some more. Let's see how much we'll need. We probably won't need all these. I don't want them overlapping, so I'll go ahead and any of these guys that might be overlapping, I'll just go ahead and delete them. And there we are. See, didn't take too long. These are looking a little bit too weird. I'm going to just kind of, you don't want them kind of going, you want to go them a little bit, not, exactly the same direction, but. Now, let's take a look. Now we have nice shirring at the bottom of our bust here. Now we also have some drapes coming in from that shoulder. So I'm just going to use that same technique right up here. And they're going to be a little bit longer, maybe just a little sort of a straight line like this. Maybe this one's going to be a little bit more of a looping line, but anywhere where it kind of goes in, that's going to be the start of our line. So this one I'm going to do a kind of a loopy. Like that. And if you don't like the way it looks, remember you can always adjust it later. And then let's do one more little one coming from right here. Okay. Now, see, I'm going to probably adjust them up here, but I'm going to go ahead and put my properties on this first. So I'm going to select all these guys up here and do that same thing that I did before. I'm going to change the stroke profile to make it taper at the ends, and I'm going to reduce the thickness of these lines a little bit. All right, now that they are the way they're going to be with thinness, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in and just sort of correct them a little bit up here. So you see it's a little choppy. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab these guys with my white arrow. Remember to look for that white anchor point. If the anchor point is filled in with color, it's going to move the whole thing. Even if sometimes you clicked on it with the right arrow, it can be a little bit temperamental like that. So there we go. Now we have our drapes coming from the top as well as our shirring coming from here. And I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing right here for the shirring that comes from our waistline. And I'm going to go ahead and use our shirring details that we've already made up here by copying and pasting them, and then using my black arrow to sort of flip them around, and we'll put them into place. Again, they might need a little bit of adjusting. We do want them to kind of head down, so I'm just going to go ahead and adjust them. And adjust our little gaps right here. And let's use these as a whole. Rotate them a little bit like so. Line them up. All right. Now I can continue copying from here, or just go back up and copy. Again, doesn't really matter. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip these guys just so I get a little bit more variety. They'll look a little bit different. Does mean I'm going to have to rotate them out again. And let's zoom in and just fix these little guys up. Oh, these ones did get grouped. So I'm going to ungroup them. If this happens, just go ahead, ungroup them, and you can move them individually. Boop. And maybe just another one of these guys for the end. Looks like I don't need this one. And let's go ahead and fill in the rest over here. Maybe with these ones. Maybe a little bit less. And maybe just another couple more for that middle part. Why don't I flip these so it doesn't get too repetitive? And you can play with it as you like. I'm just going to move this guy over just a wee bit. Boop. About right there. Okay. So now we have the shirring at our waist, and we can even sort of take a look. Some of these go a little bit longer. So if you would like to kind of play with some of your guys and make them a little bit longer, you can. So maybe this, and maybe we'll rotate it out a little bit longer here. Maybe this one's a good one to go long. Let's rotate this a little bit and go long. But I just want this one. So if it is grouped, got to ungroup it if you want to work on just one. Made that a little bit bigger too, but that's okay. All right, so now we have them kind of coming down into the skirt a little bit more. These ones, they should be pointing towards the hem. So I'm just going to make these point towards the hem a little bit more. It'll look a little bit better. Okay. Now, we don't just have the shirring in the waistline. We also have these big long drapes that go all the way from the waist, all the way down from the hem. So we're going to put those in. And what I want to look for is, remember how we made these sort of staircase shapes in our hem before? These lines, these vertical lines that we made, are the ones that are going to go up and connect all the way to the waistline. So I'm going to zoom out so I can see the hem and the waist in the image. That's okay. And I'm going to grab my pen and I'm going to start. So see, here's my first one. So I'm going to hit right there and then go all the way straight up to the waist. Okay? Now we still should have that sort of a little bit thinner, a little bit thicker profile, and it is going to kind of want to connect to some of these guys up here. So you can either do this on its own layer or just sort of embrace what's going to happen, which is fine because we're going to add a little bit of texture to this anyways. So this will kind of, see how I get that? If you're worried about it, see how I'm getting that line right there, or that icon? That means it's going to connect to one of my guys up here. So I can keep it a little lower if I don't want it. Or I can change the profile later. All right, here we have another one. We'll bring that up. And we'll just fix those up a little bit later anyways, because it's a little chunky at the top there. Or you can just connect it. Really depends. You'll create your own sort of method and style. See, that would be just like so. In any way, it'll work. So we're continuing on, continuing on. Each one of these has got to get one. Oops. This was a little tiny one here, but it's going to get one. Maybe it doesn't go all the way up, though. Maybe it just goes right here. Because it is a tiny one. Maybe this one doesn't go all the way up either. Maybe it just sort of goes right into it. I'm also kind of running out of, oops, what did I do? Let's get out of that. Running out of a little bit of space here because I don't want to go past the middle. So maybe this goes right up in here. And we don't have too many more. We just got 2 more left. So let's bring this guy all the way up. And one more. Okay. So now what I want to do is I'm going to grab all these guys right here, and here I can adjust them all together. Maybe I'm going to play around with the profile a little bit to give them sort of varying weights, see what I like. Some sort of, that's actually not too bad. There's that little line right here that's bothering me. So let's go ahead and fix that. Move that right there. And now we have a nice full skirt. The changing of the profile lines on both the drapes and the shirring really helped to make it stand out as that type of garment detail. You don't have to, but it looks a little bit clunky if you don't. So we have that shirring in the waist, and we also have that nice full skirt with many, many drapes. And again, if we do want to kind of blend these in a little bit more, we can make it a little bit deeper, because they do go actually pretty deep, these ones. But you'll adjust it as you so think. Sometimes the white arrows are good to use. Oop. Like you, I kind of want you to go a little bit longer. And I want those white. There we go. So maybe it goes real long like that, but it's a sort of thin. There we go. Maybe you too. Maybe you 3. There we go. Excellent. So now we have half the garment. Hooray! You know, if you've done flats so far, especially on our polo, that doing half of one view is way past our halfway point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my layers and ensure that anything that I've been working on previously, remember our outline layer, this guy, I'm going to go ahead and unlock it. All the drawing is unlocked at this point, and I'm going to use my black arrow to click and drag and highlight all parts. At this point, I super duper want to group it. Just because I have so many little tiny lines and everything else, I want them to all sort of connect and merge together as one object. All right, now that it is grouped, as you can see, I just have to sort of click on it and no little piece is going to be lost behind if I so choose to move it. And what I need to do, of course, is to make a copy and flip it. So I'm going to highlight it, select it, right click, go to transform. Now you can also go to object transform to do this. It's the same thing. And I'm going to hit reflect. Now we want that vertical line flip. So that should be selected, and I'm going to select copy because of course I want my original side to remain. Now I have my other side. It needs to be moved into place. It should be vertically aligned, so I can use my arrow keys just to nudge it into place. You can use your arrow keys or your mouse as well, but this seems to be a little bit easier. Look at that, not looking too bad. Now we are missing that middle boning seam, so let's go ahead and put it in and check for any gaps that might need to be fixed. Just this little guy down here. So let's go ahead and I'll grab my white arrow. I said my white arrow. All right, I am getting the whites there, so hopefully this will just move. There we go. So we'll just fix that up a little bit. Even that out. Very good. Now I'm going to go ahead and make that middle boning. So just straight down here. And you can make another one, or we can copy and paste this one, and we'll apply our top stitch texture to that one. Let's just move it into place. Come on. Thank you. While it's selected, grab that eyedropper and click on this guy. Let's move it a little bit closer in together. I don't think that boning was quite so thick. So I'm just gonna maybe just a wee bit closer together. There, that looks pretty good. So now we have our front view all nice and finished. I don't need to do any shadow for the interior part of this garment because I can't see any of the back. If we take a look at the back, it's just these thin straps. They are thinner than this, so they will be sitting behind this part of the bust unseen. And the back would go right across here, so I'm not going to see any part of the back on the front, so I don't need to worry about it. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is work on the back. And you know, for the most part, what's going to happen, I'm just going to move this to this side now so we get a little bit nicer, easier view of the back. Now, for the most part, this is going to be our back. We're not going to do it from scratch. The shape of the garment is going to go ahead and be the same. So I'm going to select our front view, make a copy by hitting Control-C, pasting it by hitting Control-V, and moving our back over here. Now, of course, our back is different, right? We have a different, we have this little corset back. We have a different shape of the straps, so on and so forth. So we're going to go ahead and change those things. Now, what I'm going to do actually is, because we can see the front from the back, so this is a thin strap, and we'll be able to see the bust and the front and everything else, I'm going to keep all of the front for now. Actually, all together. Because what I want to do is I want to grab these straps, I want to put in these straps, and I want to put in my corset back. Okay, but I'm going to be able to see the front from the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and lock this layer, and because we grouped, we have an extra layer here. I can move that and work on that, or I can create a whole new layer. It's up to you. So let's go ahead and do that corset back. I'm going to move this a little bit closer so we can see a little bit closer what we're doing. There we go. Back to layer 5. Now this comes around, as we can see here, and I'm only going to do half. So what I want to do is grab my pen tool, make sure I'm in black stroke and invisible fill, and I'm going to use my front view to inform my back. For example, this is where the corset begins and ends, so I'm going to start the corset at the beginning and end here as well. So I'll start right here, and as we can see, it kind of goes down a little bit, maybe not as much as it does in the front, but it will go down right here. All right. We see that corset opening. It has a sort of V shape, so we're going to open it up, and I'm going to go kind of straight across here. It doesn't curve down for the bust because we don't have a bust in back, and go ahead and pop right there. Okay. Now, what I want to do here is I'm actually going to fill this shape in with white. So I'm going to select it and go to the fill and choose white. All right. So now the part that we won't be able to see because the back is in the way is simply gone, and our back is filling it out. Now we do have that boning seam, so I can go ahead and put it in, or if you want to be a little bit lazy, we can go ahead and select it from here. I'm going to paste it onto layer 5 and use this little detail as my princess seam in the back. And it's a little bit straighter. It's not as diagonal. It's going to be a little bit, squish it up in there. All right, let's check our reference. All right, it's pretty aligned. It's pretty parallel to that opening. So I'm going to make sure that my flat reflects that. Oops. Angling it a little bit more, and we'll nudge it right there. Now it's nice and parallel to my back. Okay. What else do we have? Well, we have our straps, and we're going to make our straps in the same way. They're going to come here. I'm going to go kind of straight across, and they come right to the back here. I don't want it to connect to the seam, so I'm going to make sure it doesn't. Even if it looks a little off, I can always go ahead and fix it later. And again, I'm going to fill this with white. Oh, but I got to select it first. That's important, or else it doesn't know what to apply it to. There we go. I'm going to make that bottom strap a little bit thinner just so it's a little bit more even. And let's zoom in and make sure it's not choppy, that my lines are aligning nicely. Come on now, behave. Sometimes you got to click right on those anchor points with that white arrow for it to turn white. All right, so there's my strap. I'm going to make sure by checking my reference image. That looks pretty good, actually. Not too thick. Maybe a wee bit thinner, especially on the base here. If I'm taking a look, see, it actually doesn't, here's the seam. It's matching, it's lining up here with my seam. So that should be telling me something. It should be telling me that my strap is too thick. So I'm going to go ahead and move it a little bit in there. Make it a little bit thinner. A little bit thinner of a strap. And it looks fairly even, so might make it a little bit thinner up here as well. Okay. I don't see any top stitch on my strap. Potentially it's just a ribbon. Okay. So now what I want to do is I have pretty much my back half here done. So the last very little thing is we're going to get a little bit fiddly bits, and we're going to go ahead and do our corset back. Now, if we look real close, we can see how that corset is being constructed. And we have these little loops here. Now, you're going to be tempted to just use a line to render them, but we don't want to do that. We only use lines for seams. Even if it's a spaghetti strap or a little string, we still want to use 2 lines to represent it. Let's count though. 1, little gap, 2, little gap, 3, little gap, 4, and then down we have a little space here. Now we also have a center back seam with a zipper. I can tell that here. I also know that because this closure does not open enough to get it on and off adequately. We need an opening to about the full hip. So this zipper probably goes down to about the full hip. We can go a little higher on this skirt because it's very, very full. But typically that's a good rule of thumb to follow, that the closure should open to the full hip. So I'm going to zoom in here, and let's go ahead and start our little loopies. So we have 4, so sort of try to visualize it. 1, 2, 3, 4. We are going to have gaps in between each one of them. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do this and then bring it out. All right. And remember, we don't need to, oops, make sure we get this guy. 2, 3, and 1 more. Do I have room for that 1 more? Let's see. I'll move them up a little bit more. Let's move this guy up a little bit more. Because there was a fairly large gap at the bottom there. Trying to make sure they're even, of course. Now this is a fairly thick stroke for this tiny little detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these guys. I'm actually going to group them for ease, just in case I get them lost. I'm going to reduce their stroke width, something nice and thin, just like so. Now I'm going to copy the whole thing, paste it, and put these guys. We might need to go ahead and sort of squish them down a little bit. Rotate them a little bit, but we'll get them in such a manner. All right. Maybe I'm not going to be able to do it super fast with just one go. I might have to go ahead and do them individually, so I'll ungroup them and adjust them each. But once you have one, actually, it's going to be faster for you to go ahead and just copy and paste that one. So I'm going to just delete that one, and then I'll go grab this guy, copy paste, set him in. Whenever you accidentally move something, just hit Control Z. That's what I have been doing. If you're wondering, it will happen. You will accidentally grab things and shift them around. And if it's getting too annoying, sometimes that means you need to start working on a new layer. So we'll come down here, do the same thing for these guys. Poke in that little guy. Oh, see? It's telling me these guys should have been done on another layer. All right, where are you? All right, and our last little guy. We'll put him in right there. Tuck his little legs in. Okay, so now that we have our little loops, I'm going to hold off until we have the other side of our corset back to go ahead and do our lacing. And I'm going to simplify the lacing. So let's go ahead and grab what we have so far and reflect it. Nudge it into place right here. Now, I'm going to probably need to go ahead and, if I look back at our reference image, I want to see. It does come down. Actually, let's look real close. Oh, I want to look real close over here. There is a little bit of a gap right here until the zipper starts, so I'm actually going to leave that gap. Kind of makes sense with the corset back to have a little gap like that, so you can loosen it up or tighten it up if you so prefer. So we're going to go ahead and leave that. Now, we don't see this part. As you can see on the back, we just get our shirring kind of aligned right here like this. So what I'm going to do is on my layers, I'm going to now lock this guy up here because I don't want to interfere with him at all. But I'm going to unlock my original layer and do a couple things. I'm going to zoom into this part. Now, what I want to do is essentially cut off these guys over here and replace it with the sort of back waistline. So I'm going to go over here and grab my scissors tool. If you don't see your scissors tool, it's because it's hiding underneath the eraser tool. Hold the icon down by pressing your mouse button and holding down, and it will give you this submenu. Choose your scissors tool, and then I'm going to come in here and start to pluck out the line. If it says this, just try again. You didn't click right on the line. And it can be hard to click right on that line. But once you have separated it out, you're going to have to ungroup it, of course, to individually select it. But once you have it cut, and you're not selecting any of these guys, you can delete it. And we'll ungroup this guy too. And these guys, you can cut and delete just like I showed you, or you might want to try just sort of tucking them back up. Burp. In fact, they don't show at all, so you probably could have just deleted them altogether. Now this is going to kind of come down a little bit here before the zipper starts because it does need to meet in the middle. So I'm going to move this up, but just a little bit. We can always adjust it later if we so need. Okay. Now I'm going to create a little bit of, we have basically our back waist. What I would like to do is simply move these guys. I don't want these ones, so I'm going to hold shift and click on them. Those are our princess seams. And move them up. Now, I want to move up just my little shirring guys. And I'll go ahead and move up the drape lines with my white arrow. I'm just going to sort of move these guys up. You know, I don't want to do too much work. So the more you can grab them by chunks, the better. You don't want to have to do every single little one, but you might have to do some individually, just like I'm doing right here. These guys for sure. And might have to rotate their direction a little bit as well. Let's go. We don't want them intersecting. You don't want them intersecting. If a little bit happens, it's okay. And then for our drape lines, maybe these guys, let's bring them all the way up to the waist. Remember, we always wanted them to go all the way up to the waist. And maybe this one. Whoop. And now, of course, I could do that simply on the other side, but if you remember, we can go ahead and use our front from our back. Use our right for our left. So instead of going ahead and, oops, didn't mean to do that. I'm going to go ahead and select all these guys, delete them, even these guys down here, and these guys here. These guys are okay. Maybe I'll just keep them in place. Maybe they won't be too bad. Delete this as well. And we'll go ahead and select everything on this side, including down here. Oh, these are so annoying. Let's do it a little bit bigger, a little bit longer. Okay. I want all of this. Thank you. Yep, that looks good. And I'm going to go ahead and transform reflect instead of doing that all over again. And that looks pretty lined up. So there we are. Okay. there, guys. We only have a couple last few things to do. I want to make the zipper. Oh, I'm going to also delete. So it doubled it up. Remember, so this is seam on one side, top stitch on the other. So when we reflected it, it's kind of a good reason why I didn't do it to begin with. Okay, anywho. I want to kind of come down with a nice center back seam. Now this is where the invisible zipper is. So I'm going to make a little triangular tab. It looks funny, but I didn't want to connect it with any other existing line. So I made it funny looking. And I'm just going to correct it with my white arrow. Again, I probably could have avoided that by just using a different layer. So this is going to represent my zipper pull, which we use to represent the start of the zipper in flats. I'll just bring that up here. Now I just want this seam also to come down here. Boop. So there we are. And this is going to come down a little bit longer. So I'm just going to drop it. There we are. Okay, now that we have our zipper, we need the center back seam. So I'm going to go right in the middle here. And this should come straight up so I can use that shift function that we use so much of in the polo. And that is going to create my center back seam. I can just adjust it if I need a little bit with my white arrow just to bring it all the way up. Now, I also need a zipper stop. It's a little bit difficult to tell from the reference image where this stops, but I'm going to do it at about full hip, which is our general area that we do it. And we show the zipper stop simply by putting a little horizontal dash along the zipper. And I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger just so you can see it easier. And this basically tells us that the zipper is going to end there. Okay? Now the last thing we're going to do, and there's two things we're going to do. We're going to do that little corset string. And to do that, I'm actually going to use the rectangle tool. And I'm going to fill it with white so it sits on top of our other details. Let's zoom in nice and close because this is a small detail. Now the first one, I'm just going to go sort of straight across here. And we will see that it is, oh, I'm still working on layer 4. I don't want to be working on layer 4, so I'm going to undo that, lock layer 4, and actually go on top of all of these guys. Boop, there we go. But the other thing you'll notice is that I have very, very thick, kind of clunky stroke. So I'm going to go ahead and thin this way down, just like I did with the other ones. And additionally, I'm going to round my corners. Now, it was hard to see while it's still selected, but you can see it kind of rounds those corners just a little bit, making it look a little bit more lace-like. Excuse me, I have to sneeze. Sorry. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go and keep going across like so. with my lacing. Now, this is typically how I would do lacing. I would not do the bow. The bow gets really kind of messy and complicated, and it's sort of assumed that we will have it anyway. Do be sure. So see, this one is a little bit thicker, so I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit thinner. I do kind of want the crisscross, but honestly, if you are okay with just doing this, we understand sort of what that is and what it looks like for a corset, and it can get really kind of almost messy to do the crisscross, but we of course can do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the back for the crisscross and rotate it. Again, we'll make sure that these aren't too thick. That looks a little thick, so let's make it thinner. Trying to match that size, and it will come into here. So let's shrink it up. And I kind of want this to be a little bit behind these other ones. So what I'm going to do is right click it, go to arrange, and send to back. And that's just going to tuck it back behind my other laces, which will make it sit in the picture a little bit better. Let's go ahead and just bring that out a little bit here and bring this out a little bit here. And we'll just keep going with this technique. For this, I'm going to go ahead and transform reflect because it will be best, and then nudge it into place. So there's our first one. Let's make a nice little, actually, even if to keep it similar width, we can copy and paste and then rotate ones that we already have. That's fine. Let's put this guy into place. Rotate them as we'll need. Stretch them out if we need. And let's put them underneath. There we go. Once again, oh, it's a little thin. Let me thicken it up a little bit. Once we get it the way we want, we're going to just go ahead and reflect it. Nudge it into place. And one more. Thank goodness. So now we have our laced up corset back. Little bit, if you wanted to just do the X's instead of the ones that go across too, that's fine too. If you want to just do the straight across ones, honestly, that's most of the time what I do, especially with shoes and drawings. It sort of gets the point across without being overly complicated. All right. All right, there's only one quick step that we have to do left, and that is to create the shadow for this. So right now it can be a little bit difficult to determine what's the front that I can see through the back and what is the back. And we did this on our polo shirt. It's usually always done with our flats to help and clarify that question. So what I'm going to do is, here's my layer 4. Again, if I get confused, I can always toggle my visibility on and off. My back, I can see are layer 5 and layer 6. So I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to put it in between the back and the front. All right, and I'm going to work on that layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my pen tool, and just for now, it doesn't really matter what I use, but I want my nil fill. And I'm going to go ahead and do a sort of rough outline of my front. And here I don't have to be too specific, but I want to come down here. Here I do have to be specific. You'll see why. And we'll come and meet right here. Now I do want to meet at the beginning. I want a full shape. That's going to allow it to fill in nicely. Now, while this shape is selected, I'm going to now fill it with a gray color. I'm going to remove the stroke by selecting the line and hitting none. And now, while it's still selected, I'm going to head over to Properties and reduce the opacity. All right. So now I have a nice shadow for the back of my flat. And we are now done. So I can go back and delete my reference image, layer 2, by dragging the layer to the trash. I can also delete my croquis by dragging that layer to the trash as well. And here is my finished flat. And if you guys did this and you guys got through it and it looks pretty similar to this, congratulations. This is one of the very complicated flat. Most flats that you will do will probably be a little bit more simpler than this, but this was very difficult. So congratulations to you for completing it. It was no small feat. But now that you have completed it, you want to export it as a JPEG. And remember, this is for when you have completed it, because you will be submitting it as a JPEG. You're going to go ahead and name it Your Name Dress Flat. And in file type, you're going to find that JPEG option. And wherever you want to be saving it, desktop or a flash drive or wherever else, you'll find that here, and then hit export. Okay? I'm not going to do that right now. If you want to take a break and save your work, but want to come back to it, remember you're going to use your save or save as options. That will save it as a .ai or .adobe Illustrator file. That's going to save all your layers. It's going to save all your lines and anchor points and all that good stuff. So congratulations, you just completed your first fashion flat, that's hard to say, and it was not an easy one. So hooray for you. It's the most complicated one you'll be doing this semester. Time to submit, and have a good one. Bye-bye.